just got a notification. Okay, you want me to start? Okay, if anybody is at home watching this, you've gotten a notification from YouTube that Capshaw Church is live. Jamie and I are here at the building doing some testing on this new software that we have, new hardware setup actually, for the thing. And so what I'm going to do over the next 5 or 10 minutes is kind of walk through my slides from Wednesday night, and just to give Jamie some audio and video of what we have. So that's what we're going to do. Jamie's going to run downstairs here in a minute, and then right before we actually start the video portion, he's going to have to come back upstairs. And so that's what we're going to do. Hey, is my audio okay? Here in the auditorium? Okay, so in this quarter we're talking about the birth of Jesus. We're actually talking about the whole life of Jesus. This first lesson is about the birth of Jesus, and this is we're basing this off of a series of videos that I participated in a number of years ago with Appian Media. This is really a story, this is really a study of the life of Jesus. And on Sundays, Buck is going to be delivering the real meat and potatoes part of this series, in which we open up our Bibles and study that. And on Wednesday night, I'm going to try to provide some supplementary material, trying to mix in really well with what Buck is discussing on Sunday. And then we're basically going to be going chronological through the Gospels. We'll be skipping around from Gospel to Gospel. But there may be times in which I get in front of Buck, and there may be times in which Buck gets in front of me. But that's okay. We're just going to kind of keep progressing, and hopefully it'll all blend in as much as possible. It is possible too that we may repeat some of the topics that we discuss. He may have something that he mentions that is pertinent to some point he wants to make, and then I will probably make, if I have to talk about the same topic to make the point as well, we may have some repeats, but we're going to try to minimize that as much as possible. Okay, so with the Following Messiah videos, unlike the Searching for a King videos, there were only 5 of those. The Following the Messiah is actually a 10-episode series, and they follow basically chronologically through the life of Jesus. These are the 10 episodes, and so we start off with the birth and the dedication of Jesus in Bethlehem, and then we talk about the childhood of Jesus. This will include some scenes in and around Nazareth, which is of course where Jesus grew up. The 3rd episode talks about the baptism and temptations of Jesus. These took place obviously at the beginning of his ministry, and we're going to talk about those. The 4th episode has to do with the beginning of the Galilean ministry and his selection of apostles. In that video, we're going to visit the Sea of Galilee, really kind of for the first time, and talk about some of the things that happened there. Then the videos actually sequence to a series of 3 videos that are really kind of tangential in nature. They're not necessarily chronological, but we talk about a video called Who is Jesus? And the reason is because as Jesus began his Galilean ministry, people started asking that question, who is this Jesus? People in Nazareth knew who he was, but they still questioned that. And even his disciples asked that question as well. And when Jesus calmed the storm, he said, who is this Jesus that can calm the storms? And so that's a question we'll be investigating. Then we're going to spend a whole lesson on the miracles of Jesus. Jesus did a number of miraculous things while he was here on earth. We're going to be taking a closer look at that. Then we're going to spend a whole video talking about the teachings of Jesus. Then the last 3 lessons, the last 3 episodes are really, you can almost see them as one continual episode that's three episodes long, because we're going to talk about the last week of Jesus' life prior to his crucifixion. And so in episode 8, we're going to talk about his triumphal entry and his Passover meal with his disciples. There's a lot that we in our culture don't understand about the Passover meal, and so we're going to try to take a closer look at that. And then the episode 9 has to deal really with the final hours of Jesus' life, his trial before Caiaphas and Annas, Pilate, Herod, Antipas, back to Pilate, and then of course led to his crucifixion. And the very last episode talks about the fact that he is risen. We talk about that Sunday morning in which he arose from the dead, and everything that has been going on since then. So that's going to be kind of the sequence of the episodes as we go through. Okay, so Jamie, if you're listening to this, I'm getting ready to start the video part of this series, or I can go back and rehash through some of this, whatever you want to do. So part one of episode one really has to do with the birth of Jesus. You will see Jeremy and myself actually going down to the city of Bethlehem and visiting a famous older church there. There's a church called the Church of the Nativity. And that church building sits on the traditional location of where Jesus Christ was born. Now, we don't know exactly where he was born, but there is a long-standing tradition going all the way back to the 3rd century that this building is built on the correct location. And so we're going to be looking into that as we start this video. Okay, so Jamie is currently downstairs looking at some of the monitors to make sure that we are good. And then he's going to come back up and he needs to do some adjustments on the audio system so that we can play the video. And then after the video is over, I can kind of continue to speak if that's what we need to run the test. Okay, so I just went downstairs and they are adjusting some of the televisions down there to make sure they can all be heard. And so I'm going to back up here and talk about these 10 episodes again, just so to give them some audio downstairs. So we're going to be talking about the 10 episodes of Following the Messiah. These are 10 different videos. The first one talks about the birth and dedication of Jesus. His birth actually took place in Bethlehem, but then shortly after he was born, his family took him to Jerusalem to be dedicated in the temple. And so we're going to touch on both of those subjects in the first episode. The second episode has to do with the childhood of Jesus. And so in that episode, we're going to be looking at we're going to Nazareth. I mean, that's the childhood home of Jesus. There's a location there called Nazareth Village that they have recreated, a first century village, and people are in period costumes and everything, doing first century things. And it's a really interesting place to go and visit. So we're going to visit there and learn more about the childhood of Jesus. In the third episode, we're going to talk about Jesus' baptism. We're going to visit two different places on the Jordan River. One is a place called Yardenit, which is just south of the Sea of Galilee. And this is probably not the place where Jesus was baptized, but it's a beautiful location, and it gives you a really good idea of what the river would have looked like during the first century. The second place that we're going to visit with regards to his baptism is actually down closer to the traditional site of where he was baptized. There have been a lot of changes in the river, especially over the last 100 years or so, and so this place isn't quite as attractive, but we want to visit that as well. Then we're going to talk about the temptations of Jesus. The devil tempted Jesus for 40 days. And so we're going to take a trip out into the wilderness of Judea, which is where he was during this time, and you'll be able to see that. The fourth episode has to do with the subject of Jesus beginning his Galilean ministry and the selection of the apostles. So we will begin that video by making our first trip to the Sea of Galilee. And you'll be able to see the sea and see what that area looks like. And we'll discuss fishing as a occupation of many of the disciples of the time. Then the next three videos in this series are actually tangential in nature. They don't follow chronologically exactly, but they're subjects that we thought were important, so we wanted to make standalone videos of them. The first one, episode 5, has to do with the topic of who is Jesus. And the reason we called it that is because there's a lot of people that are asking that question as Jesus was beginning to go around the country teaching. People knew who he was, they knew his family, but they questioned exactly who he is. I mean, and so we're going to investigate that a little bit in episode 5. In episode 6, we're going to talk about the miracles of Jesus. Jesus did a number of unbelievable things while he was here. We're going to visit the traditional site of the feeding of the 5,000. For instance, we're going to talk about, we're going to go to visit Capernaum, which he did a number of different miracles in and around the city of Capernaum. Then episode 7 talks about the teachings of Jesus. Jesus taught in a way that showed he had authority, and in a way that was a little different than people were used to hearing. And he said things that they didn't quite understand. And so we're going to visit a number of the places in which he did teachings. We're going to go up to the Church of the Beatitudes, which is the traditional location of where the Sermon on the Mount took place. We're going to go also to the city of Nablus, which is the site of the ancient city of Sychar from the Old Testament, well, from the Bible. And we're going to visit Jacob's Well. Jacob's Well, of course, was built nearly 3,500 years ago. And, all right.
So let's try to
okay.
transition to your video.
Okay. Are you ready? Okay, so I'm about to start episode 1 here of part 1 of episode 1 of Following the Messiah, and we will start that right now. Now, do I need to turn my mic off?
I think you'll be okay.
Okay, let's.
Yeah, go ahead and cut it off.
Okay.
And pause and give me.
Such a humble beginning. His arrival wasn't announced to kings. It wasn't made before large crowds. Jesus' birth was revealed to men protecting sheep. And yet, could this have been any more fitting for a man who would become the greatest shepherd in the world? We're here in Israel. It's episode 1. We're trying to focus on the birth and the infancy of Jesus. So what are some of the things that we're going to try to go see and visit today?
Well, the first thing we're going to go see is down in Bethlehem. This is where the traditional location of where Jesus was born. Of course, we know he was born in the city, but there's a number of different ideas about exactly where. But we're going to go to one particular place called the Church of the Nativity.
Okay, so we know from the Gospels that during a Roman census, Joseph and Mary come down, and when they get down to Bethlehem, there's no room for them in what the English version says is an inn. We have some images in our imagination that we conjure up and we picture an inn.
The word in the book of Luke is the word kataluma, which literally means a guest room. So when they arrived in Bethlehem, there was no room in the guest room.
Okay.
Which makes sense because there were a number of families there who have come for the census.
That's going to be an interesting sight. You know, we're crossing a border there to go into Bethlehem.
Even though Jerusalem and Bethlehem are only 6 miles apart, there is a security barrier there between Israel and the West Bank.
Now, Luke, the historian of the Gospels, records that in those days a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and all went to be registered, each to his own town. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary his betrothed, who was with child. Now, the text talks about Mary and Joseph going up, even though they're heading south. Could you explain that?
The idea here in the scriptures is that you're rising in elevation. The city of Nazareth sits in the Galilean hills, and from the Jezreel Valley, which is fairly close to sea level, you will rise nearly 3,000 feet coming to Jerusalem.
Now, we really want to go see the first century steps at the southern wall of the Temple Mount. There's some significance there to the birth and the infancy of Jesus.
There is. After Jesus was born, his family, being a good Jewish family, went to Jerusalem to have him dedicated at the temple, and they would have gone up those first century steps that we will visit.
All right, so there's some significant events that take place in the life of Jesus, just even at 40 days old.
Bethlehem is only 6 miles to our south. It sits in the West Bank, and so we'll need to travel down there to see all this.
I had no idea Bethlehem was that close to Jerusalem. I'm really excited to go see the Church of the Nativity. When we got to the Church of the Nativity, Barry explained the different sized doors and the humility gate, or the humility door. You have to bow to get underneath it.
What we're looking at here is a statue of Jerome, who translated the Latin version of the Vulgate.
Barry, these arches are incredible.
They are. They're really pretty.
I'm really glad you brought me here.
Oh, this is one of the places I really love to come. But as pretty as this church is, there's something underneath the ground that I think you'll be interested in. Well, one of the things I appreciate about traveling around Israel is because it helps me to make the Bible stories even more real.
Barry, in Matthew chapter 2, Matthew records that after the birth of Jesus, Herod is trying to get him. He's threatened by this king that's going to take his kingdom. And So in a dream, Joseph is told to take Mary, take Jesus, and flee to Egypt. They do that. Herod is frustrated that he missed his opportunity. And so in Matthew 2:16, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, he became furious and sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Now, that verse is connected to what we're standing next to.
It is. What they found in here are a number of burial chambers and ossuaries in which small children, very young children, were buried. There's some first century tombs down there that they think this is where a number of the babies that during the first century were buried. And this possibly relates to the story in Matthew's 2nd chapter that we read about.
Now, when my mind goes to that event and I read through the Gospels, I think of a larger city. I think of hundreds of children, thousands of children that would fit that criteria. But that's really not what's going on here, is it?
No, it's not. In fact, Bethlehem of modern day is around 60 to 70,000 people. Bethlehem in the first century would have just been several hundred. And so when we think about all the children who were killed, it wasn't in the hundreds or thousands. It was really probably in the number of dozens. Of course, any death is one too many.
To think about what Herod did because he thought Jesus was a competitor to his throne is just, it's horrifying. It's such a haunting reminder of such a terrible time. And all of that was an attempt to get at Jesus as an infant. It was very sobering. It's very sobering to think about. Down in this cave, they found the remains of children that Herod massacred trying to kill Jesus as an infant. And to think that that was the way things worked, I mean, Herod the Great ended up killing some of his own children, one of his own wives, so it wasn't unprecedented for him. But that's not something that civilized people do. That's not something that's a part of our culture. And so it was sobering. It really established the reality of the event. This isn't something that was imagined. It wasn't something that was made up. You know, with fairy tales and everything else, you want to dress things up and get rid of the ugly parts. And the Gospels don't do that. The Gospels say, this is what happened, even if it's not pleasant, even if you wish it hadn't. And that was one of those moments. Up at the front, there are 3 different religious groups, 3 different churches that maintain the main portion of the church. There was one group that came in and they were praying and doing their morning mass, and then another group came in and they were supposed to clean up, and then another group came in and went down and prayed inside of the cave. So to watch multiple groups maintain the same space was really, I mean, it was different. That's not anything I've ever seen. Barry was able to take us to the cave where the traditional location of Jesus' birth was, and the traditional location of where the stone manger was found that he was laid in. When we use the phrase a traditional location, we mean that this location has a rich heritage going back millennia in some instances to identify a general location.
A lot of the times that means we have a history of people passing down that information from generation to generation.
We may not know the exact rock or piece of dirt, but it's fairly confident to say it's in this general area that this event took place. And we should probably add that God never meant for us to worship a piece of ground. He never meant for us to worship a specific site. What was important for him was what happened at those places.
All right, Jeremy, this is what I wanted to show you. We're down in a cave underneath the Church of the Nativity here in Bethlehem. This is the traditional location of where Jesus Christ was born. The 14 points around the star represent the generations from Abraham to David, David to the exile, and the exile to Jesus.
And those 14 generations, those are captured for us in Matthew chapter 1.
That's right.
And all day long, people are going to be coming down here, they're going to be touching it, they're going to be kissing it. They're going to be leaving prayers down in this little alcove. Now, this marks that spot, but there's something else down here we want to see.
Yes, on the other side of the cave here, there is a little alcove in which they believe the manger sat.
Let's go look at that.
Okay.
Barry, we're only about 12 feet away from that 14-pointed star. What is it that we're looking at?
Well, we read in the Bible that after Jesus was born, that they laid him in a manger. As you can see here, we're underneath this little cave, this little alcove in the cave here. This is the traditional location of where that manger laid.
This was a fantastic honor to be able to come down here.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the misconceptions that most Westerners have ties back to the idea of Jesus was born in a barn. There was no room in the hotel, so they went to the stables and he was placed in a wooden trough and just that whole picture. And understanding the cultural difference, no, there was no room in the family guest house, so they went to it's hard to imagine. But one of the things that did help was it communicated the idea of going into a cave. You take these steps down and around a curve, and so you have the sense of you're going underground. You think about the Son of God coming down to earth and being born in the back of a cave with animals in the seclusion and privacy of the hills of Bethlehem, without any trumpeting, without any fanfare, without any attendance other than his parents. And to think about how humble his beginning was. And that was intentional. He was willing to choose that. And to get a better visual of that drives that point home even more strongly. Such a humble beginning. His arrival wasn't announced to kings. It wasn't made before large crowds. Jesus' birth was revealed to men protecting sheep. And yet, could this have been any more fitting for a man who would become the greatest shepherd in the world? We're here in Israel. It's episode 1. We're trying to focus on the birth and the infancy of Jesus. So what are some of the things that we're going to try to go see and visit today?
Well, the first thing we're going to go see is down in Bethlehem. This is where the traditional location of where Jesus was born. Of course, we know he was born in the city, but there's a number of different ideas about exactly where. But we're going to go to one particular place called the Church of the Nativity.
Okay, so we know from the Gospels that during a Roman census, Joseph and Mary come down, and when they get down to Bethlehem, there's no room for them in what the English version says is an inn. We have some images in our imagination that we conjure up and we picture an inn.
The word in the book of Luke is the word kataluma, which literally means a guest room. So when they arrived in Bethlehem, there was no room in the guest room.
Okay.
Which makes sense because there were a number of families there who have come for the census.
That's going to be an interesting sight. You know, we're crossing a border there to go into Bethlehem.
Even though Jerusalem and Bethlehem are only 6 miles apart, there is a security barrier there between Israel and the West Bank.
Now, Luke, the historian of the Gospels, records that in those days a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and all went to be registered, each to his own town. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth, to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. Now, the text talks about Mary and Joseph going up, even though they're heading south. Could you explain that?
The idea here in the scriptures is that you're rising in elevation. The city of Nazareth sits in the Galilean hills, and from the Jezreel Valley, which is fairly close to sea level, you will rise nearly 3,000 feet coming to Jerusalem.
Now, we really want to go see the first century steps at the southern wall of the Temple Mount. There's some significance there to the birth and the infancy of Jesus.
There is. After Jesus was born, his family, being a good Jewish family, went to Jerusalem to have him dedicated at the temple, and they would have gone up those first century steps that we will visit.
All right, so there's some significant events that take place in the life of Jesus, just even at 40 days old.
Bethlehem is only 6 miles to our south. It sits in the West Bank, and so we'll need to travel down there to see all this.
I had no idea Bethlehem was that close to Jerusalem. I'm really excited to go see the Church of the Nativity. When we got to the Church of the Nativity, Barry explained the different sized doors and the humility gate, or the humility door. You have to bow to get underneath it.
Thanks. I heard that.
Can you talk into that mic?
All right. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right. We are talking into this mic, doing a sound check, see how everything is going. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. I'll speak a little bit louder so that we can see what's going on here.
Slides and then see a little picture with there.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Lapel mic's on. Can I? You want me to stand away from this mic? How do you want me to stand?
No, you're good right there.
All right. All right. Lapel mic is on. Testing 1, 2, 3 on the audio. Can you hear the audio from the lapel mic? I'm trying to see how it sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Testing, testing, testing. You stand.
Do me a favor, turn off the lapel mic now.
Turn it off.
Yes, sir. Standing in front of the table.
All right, I am standing in front of the table. Lapel mic is off. So just the table mic. Standing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Audio test, test, test. 1, 1, 1.
Should be standing in front of the
Can you hear me now?
You don't hear the table mic.
Is there a battery in this table mic?
Okay, hang on just a second.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
No, it's not.
No, it didn't have the table mic up.
5 inches or so.
All right, testing 1, 2, 3. Oh, we're getting feedback in the speakers overhead though. So testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, give it just a second.
Okay, they're hearing the same thing too.
All right, hang on, Barry, hang on just a second. You talk now.
I'm talking now. Can you hear me now? I'm behind the table mic and I am talking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, you want me to continue talking? I am talking. Table mic, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That sounded good?
He says it sounds good.
Yeah, the quality is not quite as good as the lapel. It's a little distorted, but it's okay.
So the lapel mic sounds better.
Not sensitive, yeah, but it's
Lapel mic is on. You're standing away. Lapel mic. I am speaking from the lapel mic. Can you hear me now? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Testing 1, 2, 3. Mic is off.
Speak back into the podium mic.
I'm speaking into the podium mic. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Test, test, test. Testing 1, 2, 3.
it has a little more gain or something than the lapel mic, but they're both okay.
Okay,
The podium mic sounds good,
okay.
better than
The table.
so yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go back and play the video one more time, and I wanna make sure everything's okay. So I got the thing to restart the video.
Such a humble beginning. His arrival wasn't announced to kings. It wasn't made before large crowds. Jesus' birth was revealed to men protecting sheep. And yet, could this have been any more fitting for a man who would become the greatest shepherd in the world?